Time now for our rants and raves of the week. Starting with you, Dan. What do you got?
Well, I have a rant for the student government at Wesleyan University, which cut off funding to the Wesleyan Argus, the student newspaper, because they ran a moderately conservative column that was critical in a civilized way about the Black Lives Matter movement. Unfortunately, the Argus immediately issued an abject apology, and it looks like they're going to get at least some of their funding back. What I would really love to see the students at the Argus do is say, you know what? We need to end our dependence on funding from the student government and find a way to go independent, as the students at Boston University did many years ago, as the students at our university, Northeastern, did a few years ago. Even if it means getting rid of the print edition
was
and
that
doing
a quid
it
pro
free
quo
online.
that they issue the apology so that they can get the funding?
Well, it certainly looks that way, doesn't it?
And that apology made me so mad because it was such an inbounds column. It was very
Absolutely.
much within the realm
a couple
of
weeks ago when it
reasonable.
The apology was like something from the Moscow show trials.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. It was just this, we will shame ourselves.
Just before being sent to the gulag.
I got to say, though, Wesleyan's image is justifiably taking a beating here, but as the proud father of a Wesleyan alumnus, I have to say that's a fantastic university. The president came out when this initially happened and said to the kids, you can't act this way, the free press is important. And then he backed off and let them kind of work it out among themselves. Maybe not to all of our satisfaction, but there's a special place in hell reserved for the Mau Mau artists who try to shut down free speech. I don't care where they are.
Good one. All right, Joanna.
I have a rave for USA Today, which had a little fun this week. This was Back to the Future week. This is the date, October 21st, 2015, was the date that Marty McFly visited in Back to the Future 2, which was made back in the 1980s. And they made a cover in the movie. They used a fake USA Today cover. And this week, USA Today produced the full page of that fake cover and made it a wrap around its Thursday edition of the print paper. We can take a look at it. It's got some made-up stories such as cholesterol is key to curing cancer and public more gullible than ever. And then the saddest thing for people who've been following the news is up in the top left corner you can see Cubs take series in 5. The future didn't happen.
It did not. Hotel guests around the country were thrilled.
I know.
I never saw that movie.
Did you see, by the way, the
The
script
first
writer?
was better. The first one was much better.
The scriptwriter says Trump was the inspiration for McFly, the bully in the movie. I had never known that before. I thought that was fascinating. Live and learn. Huh?
Yeah, I guess so. All right, Adam, what do you got?
I would like to rave for another bit of New York Times content. This is a story called The Strange Case of Anna Stubblefield. It was written by a guy named Daniel Engberg, who's a regular contributor to the magazine. I don't believe he's on staff. I started reading this. I was getting ready to get out of here, a little on the early side, happened to click on this, and 45 minutes later, I was still sitting there at my desk with my head in my hands because I couldn't believe what I just read. It's the story of a woman who was a professor at Rutgers who was tasked with helping a severely disabled young man learn to communicate. She ended up deciding that she and he were in love and facing criminal charges. It is the most riveting thing I've read in ages. I've been thinking about it for the past 3 or 4 days. Absolutely.
Oh gosh, it
terrific.
reminds me of that infamous case here where the woman fell in love with a psychiatrist. Gary Chaffetz wrote a book about it, a couple other people. Can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me before we finish that.
But you got to read it if you haven't.
No, I
It's so good.
started reading it, but yeah, I mean, I'm always fascinated by those kinds of relationship stories anyway. So what was she charged with?
Well, essentially, I'll try to sum it up very briefly. This young man couldn't talk, was supposed to have very, very low IQ, had a host of disabilities, and she tried to use a technique called, I think, facilitated communication, which involves taking someone who can't write or can't type, and you hold their arm and move it around on it, or you don't move it around. They're supposed to move it. You're supposed to follow their lead so they can type on a keyboard and tell you what they're thinking. The problem is it gets into kind of Ouija board territory where what actually may be happening is the person doing the facilitating is expressing the thoughts they think the person has, but that they're really having. Really a bizarre story. Thank you for playing along.
Sure. No.
Yeah, that is a good one. All right, John.
Your hands are cold, by the way. You
Chilly.
all right? Okay. I have a rant for the journalists, some of the biggest named journalists in the business at some of the biggest news organizations in the business, who spent the bulk of the spring, summer, and early fall breathlessly reporting on the will he or won't he saga of Vice President Joe Biden. Will he or won't he run? Vox, the website, did an excellent readout of all, month by month, a timeline of these breathless articles where an announcement is imminent. Sources say within a couple of days, and some of them going so far as to say, he's in, he's in, he's in. Well, they were all wrong on everything at every turn, month after month. Article after article, the treanity of the trees that died to print these bogus stories.
But John,
Why?
people are still. I had somebody come up to me today and say, "Do you think that's for real?" It's like that's what reporters do, and they speculate and speculate.
Well, that's the dirty secret of political prognostication, is that you don't really know what you're talking about. Nobody does.
I mean,
And there's no consequences.
And there
listen,
are no consequences.
An interesting analysis of the pros and cons of a Biden entrance into the race. A look back at his career to maybe give us some insight into what he's thinking. Fine. But why do we have to get ahead of the event itself? Always. This is a major failing of journalism.
I agree it's a major failing, but maybe in this case it was exacerbated by the man's own tendencies. I mean, when he gave that speech in the Rose Garden, that could have been a speech announcing that he was running. I had the impression that he made up his mind the hour before, so maybe his own camp was sending out wildly conflicting signals.
Well,
and the
he-
press
Well,
was
that
He
doesn't mean
leaked
if you're
the
being
thing-
spoon-fed garbage, that doesn't mean you have to regurgitate it.
But he was the one, it turns out, who leaked the idea that his son, on his deathbed, told him to run. That came from the Biden camp, and that sent the waves of speculation outward and outward.
And that was a riveting column. Maureen Dowd wrote that column. Fine, that's fine. And a lot of this sort of speculation that took place, this Willie or won't he stuff, first of all, should have been confined to the editorial pages or the op-ed pages. And again, it just got out ahead. It's like trying to predict the outcome of the Super Bowl before the game is played.
Well, when we were done speculating about Elizabeth Warren running for president, we had
Well, I
nothing
never
else
thought.
to do. So we
Emily
had
and
to-
I knew from day one
Well,
that
that was a
wasn't
good
going to
call.
happen, right,
So did
Emily?
I.
All
Me
right.
too.
Finally, I have a rave for probably one of the most important stories of this century. I mean, would you all agree? Dino the cockatoo. I loved this story. I loved the way the Globe played it. I loved where they played it on the front page with a follow-up front page article on it today. I loved the fact that it had all the elements. You know, the former federal judge, you know, a kooky neighbor who the bird did not belong to, who didn't want it to be captured, and then the disabled owner of the bird that just wanted the bird back, loved the bird, had other birds, and that had every element of a great neighborhood story. And this bird, who we were going to get the shrieky noise, we didn't get it, but the bird shrieks, and all it ever says is no. No, and then I was reminded of the great remember when the gorilla got out of when Little Joe got out of the
Oh,
zoo.
boy. Yeah,
I can remember when
careful.
no, we're not going there. That John Linehan, the president of Zoo New England, said, you know, Joe, he's a gorilla, not a criminal. You know, like they're putting him back in the cage, and everybody was treating him like, you know. So I felt the same way about the bird. It was a great story.
Well, I like the way in the original Globe story, Nancy Gertner, the federal judge whose home got chewed up by this
Yeah.
bird, indicated she didn't care if the bird lived or died, which, as a staunch death penalty opponent she's been, I thought was inconsistent.
All right. Well, that is it for our show. Tell us what you think. Email us, tweet us, or leave a comment. We're always on at beatthepress.org.